Garrett Wilson because of the first name. I love this guy's last name.
Hey.
Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. Coming off a year where he caught 91 balls for 1,182 yards and 12 touchdowns. 5'11", 178 pounds. Will be 22 and a half when the year kicks off. Coming off a pretty productive year last year, but even in 2020, had some really good numbers. Combine, pretty solid. 4.4340. 36-inch vertical, 121-inch broad jump, a 7.28 three-cone. That got me not too great. Put that in bold letters.
All the three cones were low this year, though. Only 2 got below a 6.
Only 2 got below a 6.
It was a weird year for the three cone. You're right.
But it's still a 7.28, and I don't like that. But you're talking about like reliable hands. This is a guy who has reliable hands. Caught 91% of his catchable balls. Only had 2 drops. Played outside.
He makes fantastic all around. Like he probably has some of the best hands we've seen. I just wanted to like kind of underline that and say it.
9.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
the highest grade in the class.
Yeah, just watch the 2 catches he had back to back versus Ohio State. The one in coverage where he contorts his body and turns around, and then the one-handed snag for the touchdown. Probably one of the best catches you're going to see. I mean,
that was in the 2020 game, right?
2020. It wasn't 2021.
Yeah, it was 20. Yep.
So
this is 2019, I think. No, it's 2020.
That was 2020.
So in 2020 and 2019, he played mostly outside. But in 2021, he moved into the slot. And where he was playing on the outside, he played in the slot a little bit more in 2021. So he's playing inside and outside. And he's somebody that actually was more effective when he moved in last year to the slot. Somebody who gets off the line really well, uses good technique. His quickness is where he gets his separation from. And he's somebody like, again, where maybe this comes a little bit off the 3-cone, where Garrett Wilson's a little bit more dynamic out there. It's Jahan Dotson wins with his feet, his suddenness, his quickness. He varies his speeds pretty well.
They're very similar, right? Body style. I mean, Jahan Dotson is a little bit shorter, a little bit skinnier, but like proportionately, they're pretty much around the same size, right? I mean, just a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. I feel like Jahan Dotson, I like a lot about what he does. But watching these 2 players back to back, and that's how I did it. I came away like, he's really good at this. He's just not quite as good as Garrett Wilson at.
Sure.
And it's hard to not compare the 2 when you're watching them back to back because they do a lot of the same stuff. They're on a lot of the same kind of routes.
I'll tell you the bigger difference right now between the 2. It's them in the open field.
That is correct. I was going to say that when you boil it down, they do a lot of the same things, but Garrett Wilson is more explosive after the catch, and I think that's kind of where you differentiate the 2 of these guys. Yep. And that was my bottom line. I was like, these 2 are very similar, but he's just kind of like the light version of Garrett Wilson when it comes to run after the catch, and maybe just everything. He's just he's a titch slower. He's a titch smaller. He's a titch less explosive, and he's not quite as good after the catch. So that's kind of how I see these 2 wide receivers stacking up, and it's not like I don't want to say that he's bad. I don't want people to think of him as being bad because
he's good.
Yeah, he's very good. He's right now he's gonna be probably in that 3rd to 4th wide receiver in my rankings type of range.
Yeah, I have him right around like 5 or in this 5-6 range, and because when you look at the positives, when you just strictly look at the positives, Jahan Dotson, there's a lot to like. But like, it's good that I watched him like in depth right after Garrett Wilson. Like I felt really good. I'm glad that you stacked him that way because being able to watch those guys back to back, and the difference is again, in the open field, drastically different. I saw a lot of one-arm tackles on Jahan Dotson. He was like way easier to bring down. And where Garrett Wilson's like this really good, explosive player, you see a little bit less of that athleticism in Dotson out there in open field. And a lot of those, what he showed at the combine, that came into fruition. I mean, this is somebody where you can look at Garrett Wilson like this is a good athlete out there. Jahan Dotson's not that like elite athlete. And some of his numbers here at the combine with the broad jump, with his 3-cone, it kind of showed a little bit here when he gets in that open field where he's not going to win the same way. His arms aren't as long. I think his arm right here is his wingspan is in the smaller percentile when it comes to a wingspan, where Garrett Wilson, like Jared said, he's going to win anywhere near that ball is around him, right? He's going to go up and get it. Where Dotson has the really good hands, the radius isn't as
It's a smaller
expansive
catch radius,
as
yep.
a guy like Garrett Wilson. So to me, when I'm looking at the prospects of a dynasty player, to me it's Garrett Wilson easily over Jahan Dotson.
No, I agree. It's not hard to figure out who's better. But I just didn't want it to make it. I didn't want it to sound like I don't like him as a player, because I do like him as a player. I think obviously he suffered probably from worse quarterback play as well. So
Definitely.
I would
Clifford is bad.
Yeah,
Worst in the Big Ten history.
right. So I would have liked to have seen him with a better quarterback to see if maybe he was getting slightly better balls thrown to him. If he could maybe do a little bit more after the catch as well.
I'm
Like
glad
if he goes to KC with Pat Mahomes, like, that's a good
Oh,
spot.
absolutely.
And now we're gonna let Garrett get into him. And I kind of like pushing you aside a little bit because you have a lot to say because you
Yeah.
love Jahan Dotson.
I do.
You came in here glowing about him. So
I was surprised a little bit too, because I try my best going into prospects to like clear my mind of everything I know about the guy and everything, and I had seen a little bit and I was just whelmed. I wasn't like overly excited or anything like that, but also, and I use that as a regular word in my life.
Whelmed.
Yes. But on top of that, anytime a guy comes back for his senior year, I was like, but why? But why? Why did you do that? So that's always kind of sticks in my mind, although we've seen a lot of really good guys lately that did go back for their senior year. So it's starting to be disproven a little bit. Cooper Kupp was a senior. Debo Samuel was a senior. Terry McLaurin. Like, there's a lot of very good receivers that have gone back for their senior year.
Olave.
Chris Olave, yeah, a guy that we'll get to next week, which I'm excited to cover him as well.
Especially this year, it's a very weird, you know what I mean, as far as
The
the COVID timing and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
because you'll have guys that are juniors that it's like their 5th year. It's like, how are you a junior?
Oh, we have one guy coming into his 7th year we're going to talk about. So
Yeah, so it's weird. But all of that being said,
Old man River.
I started watching his tape, and Clifford is definitely not a good quarterback. And I think that was something that even made me like Jahan Dotson more, because he had the best hands in the class, I think, bar none. That was his best attribute, and there was nobody in the class who was better, especially considering how frequently passes would be thrown behind him, would be underthrown, would be overthrown. Like, it was very rare for him to catch a ball in stride. That just did not happen frequently. And I think that's part of the yards after catch thing as well, is it's a lot easier to run and go when you're still at full speed, as opposed to having to stop, catch it, and then try to break tackles and things like that. So I still think Garrett Wilson's better after the catch. I have him, an 8 versus a 6.5. So I definitely think that Garrett Wilson's better there. But those are the types of things that I wonder, like, would he be better in those areas had he had more, better passes thrown his way? But overall, the overall profile is really good. I was also pleasantly surprised at how well he did in contested catch situations, despite being a smaller receiver. He's not a guy that you would think of as, the 6'1", 6'2", go up and get it. But he didn't have any issues with when there was DBs on him. He could go up and get the ball. It wasn't.
He's a guy that trusts his hands, and again, those kind of guys, usually are good in those kind of situations because they can just outmuscle defenders.
and he is 5'11". It's not like he's like a shorter.
Yeah,
receiver.
he's not like 5'9".
Yeah.
He's just very average height when it comes to it. But I was saying this, and I don't know that this is like my favorite comp ever. But if you were to make Elijah Moore a little bit slower and a little bit better at contested catches, I think that's kind of what we have here with Jahan Dotson. I see them similarly. It's just one's got a little more juice and the other one's a little bit better as the contested catches. But I have them graded as far as their nerd score grade as pure prospects. Pretty close. Elijah Moore had a slightly better score, but very close.
I thought Elijah Moore, the way he was able to get the ball was a little bit better than Jahan Dotson. Him with the ball in his hands, to me, again,
Sure.
it's like I'm watching two different players.
Well, and I think that was the speed. That's why I was saying quicker, but slightly better with his hands
I think
or contested catch.
going back to Elijah, I think he's better side to side. I think that's where I differentiate the two of them in my brain anyway, with the ball in their hands.
Real excited for Elijah Moore this year.
Yeah, me too.
Like, real excited. Jared, you got anything to throw on top of Jahan Dotson, best last name in the game?
Yeah, my only worry with Dotson is like for his frame.
Yeah.
When DBs get hands on, he seems to like stop a little bit. So I'm a little worried with his overall physicality. But as far as going up and getting the ball, I mean, he's right up there with Garrett Wilson, like you said. And it's funny, Matt, you said he's like Garrett Wilson light. So I was looking through my nerd score, and just comparing him and Garrett Wilson, he's just like a fraction lower on pretty much every category.
Yep.
Aside from hands, I have Dotson as the best hands in the class.
And that's exactly dead on. That's
Yeah.
the way I
and
see
literally
it
what
anyway.
you read,
Yep.
and I didn't even read out mine, which is funny. And for my biggest worry about Jahan Dotson, I wrote, will his overall size and physicality be his Achilles heel at the NFL level? Like, you know, and then being able to come down so easily. Those are my only two concerns here. Were like big and bold. Were like his size and physicality. Like it's just that's because that's the difference between being a wide receiver 3 at the next level and being a high end wide receiver 2. It's literally that simple.
Sure.
Where you catch the football. I mean, you want to be Austin Hooper, get the football and just fall down? Is that what you want to do? Because that's not going to translate to fantasy football points.
Did you just comp Dotson to Hooper?
He offers much more after the catch than Hooper. Come
Much
on.
more. You know what I mean? But like that
Jamar Chase.
that dynamic. I mean, again,
Sure.
when we're looking at these players, right? Like we have to be that nuanced with them because these are the difference between this pick and that pick. So when you say I like Jahan Dotson over Jameson Williams, that's the difference. If some people
Who said that?
Nobody yet. What I'm
All
just
right.
saying, like when we do this show, and everybody that listens, like,
Fight
hey,
you.
I respect Matt's opinion on this player more than you. I respect Rich's opinion. I respect Garrett's opinion. So when we tell these people,
You had it right first.
you know what I mean? I like Jahan Dotson over them. I mean, it's a difference between having that player on your roster for the next 10 years and the difference between, you know, having an okay player and a dynamic player. So when there's concerns like that, I'm going to start looking for players that are outside it. So for me, it's why I would push Jahan Dotson down to that 9-ish range in my first round, probably right around there. You know, anywhere from 8 to 12. I want to see where these
Not
guys
in a
land
startup, you mean?
I think that's where he lives.
9-ish in a startup.
overall. Yeah,
I think that's where he lives.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
where he's showing so
Yeah.
far in mock drafts. And like I said, things are going to change this year with how close these guys and how the subtle things are different. Because again, Jahan Dotson.
Second round pick in the NFL draft.
Oh, I think so.
I've
think
heard
so,
some
too.
rumor. I've heard some rumors end of the first, but I think he's pretty locked in as a top 50 guy.
Yeah, I think so.
And the facts are, no matter what, some of these guys are close enough and good enough. If you take one of these guys like Jahan Dotson, you pair him up with a guy like Pat Mahomes, who can move outside the pocket and make things happen and put the ball where Jahan Dotson needs the football anyways, and also put him in position to succeed after the catch, that does mean something at the next level. When having a guy like Aaron Rodgers throwing you the football, and then there's no other receivers even around you but you to come in as a rookie, to have, you know, McCole Hardman as a number, or I'm sorry, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's your computer, who's on a 1-year deal. That does speak something for the Dynasty community when you have a guy like not as much Aaron Rodgers on a 3-year deal, but Pat Mahomes on a 10-year deal, and you take you take him in the first round. That does enough for me to give somebody like Dotson maybe a slight bump.
Did you just
Dotson.
mispronounce your own last name?
Jahan Dotson. He put them together. Dotson.
Dotson.
New guy, new name. Yeah.
I think he could offer some upside in punt return too, because he did that at Penn State. So